This week on Politics Unplugged, we're looking back at 2023. A year into Governor Hobbs' first term as governor, the panel is here to talk about what she's accomplished and where she's failed. This year saw an historic number of vetoes at the state capitol, so we're looking at the legislature's hits and misses, talking about what they got right and what they got wrong. Plus, who had the best year in Arizona politics and who had the worst. We're talking about that and more this week on Politics Unplugged.
And good evening, I'm political editor Dennis Welch. This is Politics Unplugged, and each year we take this week to look back at the year in politics. This year, our panel consists of Democratic political consultant Don Penich-Thacker and Republican political consultant Marcus DelArtino. Thank you both for being here. Want to start off, I think the first segment I want to look back, it's Governor Hobbs' first year in office. It's pretty significant. It's the first time we've had a Democratic governor in like 16 years since, Janet Napolitano. I want to start with you, Don. How do you grade out her first year in office?
Considering what a massive change it was for our state, for our system of government, I think she pulled off a really good year. We had historic investments in the Housing Trust Fund, which is something that real Arizonans care about. We saw improvements in access to reproductive health care. We saw some messaging of what to expect in the future, which is hopefully going to, include some regulation and protection of our groundwater resources. So, there were some obstacles, mostly from this kind of obstructionist, do nothing, Freedom Caucus that was, blocking her agency appointments and some level setting in the first few months in terms of her own administration. But pulling off a historic bipartisan budget, we cannot forget that that's a feat that we haven't seen in, like you said, nearly 2 decades.
Yeah, and so get the Republican side on this. What do you think her best accomplishments were? We've talked in the past about how you thought, at least from a Republican's point of view, the budget was pretty good.
Well, yeah, from a Republican standpoint, it was a great budget. I think everybody's probably opening up their mailboxes about now and finding a check in there. If you have kids, I'm sorry. If you have kids, you've got a $250 check per kid, up to 3, which was amazing for, we didn't see that one coming. I didn't think that a Democrat governor would sign off on that. So I would definitely say that was probably her best accomplishment.
Well, you weren't expecting people to sign off on that, a governor sign off on that without income caps on this. That was the
absolutely.
Issue, right?
I prefer not to, but of course I would have thought that they would have put income caps on there. And frankly, probably would have been, in retrospect, from a Democratic perspective, wise considering what we're looking at going into this budget. But hey, I'm happy.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more specific. So when she campaigned in office, she talked a lot about capping the state school voucher program. And I think this is kind of an issue you can look at from her point of view and say they got some stuff done, but they didn't get done what they really wanted to do, because she's been wanting to rein in this program. She did get some more accountability measures on this, but it's essentially the same program, and now we're seeing it is costing the budget a lot of money. How do you think she did on that?
Well, I don't know how much more she could have done, again, with this legislature that has been absolutely adamant that they will not add transparency, they will not add accountability, and they're perfectly fine, the Republican legislature, with letting people buy $500 Lego sets and take trips to the San Diego Zoo using our tax dollars. So, she's up against that, but I think that there's a long-term strategy here of the more that we can reveal and talk about some of the abuse and just exploitation of our state budget for this, unregulated school voucher program, I think that sets the stage. So, you don't become governor for 1 year. There shouldn't be an expectation that you get everything done in year 1. So I think she is successfully setting the stage for regulating and reining in this unaccountable program in the future.
Yeah, and it's divided government, working with the Republican legislature, which this voucher program really is a die-on-the-hill issue for a lot of them over there. It's right. I want to talk to you about another big win maybe for this governor. That's the extension of Prop 400, the transportation tax. At first, it looked like it wasn't going to get done. But after a switch in some of the leadership up there with her staff, with the chief of staff and whatnot, she was able to get that through. Is that something that you think she can tout as one of the big accomplishments in her first year?
I think she can. I would tell her that it's probably not your #1 issue that you want to be out touting. There's far better issues for you to be campaigning on as a Democrat.
Than a tax? So Republicans saying that?
But No, it's, you know, transportation, I hate to break it to you, ain't polling real high for voters in a presidential
election. If you
election.
don't have it, people are going to start complaining.
I mean, mayors are excited about it. City councils are excited about it. It's really a city issue, and from those local candidates are going to be campaigning on it. So yes, it's a victory for her, and she's going to put it on her resume. But at the scheme of things, she's going to be wanting to campaign on other issues other than transportation.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a big campaign issue for her, but this is a big win for her, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of statewide energy put into this. And, you know, it's one of those issues that voters are not sitting around the table talking about. But if there's closures and you can't get around in your day-to-day life, then it becomes something you can complain about. And who are you going to look at? The person at the top. So this was smart strategy to make sure and take care of this, even though it might not be the sexiest topic. I think that there are definitely some topics that will be, you know, are slam dunks with voters, such as protecting our water, doing more for housing, and supporting, you know, protecting access to reproductive rights.
And before we move on to like what the governor's biggest missteps or failures are, anything else that you think the governor could be touting from her first year?
Yeah. She got a lot done with a legislature that set out to say we will let her achieve nothing. She still got a lot done. So, I mean, that's a win.
All right, let's talk about some of the things maybe she didn't do well on or made some missteps. Let's start with the tamale bill. It's your favorite bill of the session, if I remember. If you don't remember.
Listen, that's the one that'll be touted the most. Is you know, if you had to chalk up a legislative failure, it's going to be the burrito bill.
And that was the one that was going to legalize home-cooked foods, and so people could sell it without, you know, going through all sorts of regulations and stuff like that.
Right, and even got in a tangle with a member of her own caucus.
And she vetoed that bill.
And she vetoed that bill. I will tell you, you know, honestly, in looking at the actual policy, which I'm not too sure anybody does anymore, but if you looked at the language of the bill and the impact, I think there is a legitimate discussion to happen on that bill. And I frankly don't disagree with her vetoing it and taking time to make sure it's written correctly. But that being said, from a PR standpoint, it was a little rough ride. And
in your take, what do you think some other things that maybe she didn't get accomplished was a misstep or a failure in the first year?
Well, I think that her and the administration stumbled a little bit with the agency and the department lead appointments. It was very predictable. Jay Kaufman basically said, this is what I intend to do, is block every appointment she tries to make. So I think there could have been more behind the scenes strategy instead of putting these poor appointees, you know, in front of this vetting committee that the Freedom Caucus came up with, and then just seeing them drop like flies, be abused and humiliated for unfair reasons. And then, you know, they got a workaround. Now they're putting people in on a temporary basis, but that workaround should have probably been the strategy from the get-go.
All right, and, you know, final thing I want to end this segment on. I mean, the other big piece of news that we saw this year is that the governor did make some change in leadership. She switched out her chief of staff. There were some other staff members she switched out of there. How did that work? Do you think this was something positive for the governor making that change, or do you think it's worked on a negative level?
You can't get away from the way it's a positive impact. I mean, everything started to sort of click into place after some of those staff changes. And it wasn't only the chief, it was other staff changes. And it's natural. Every governor's gone through this. I think everybody forgot Governor Symington went through, I want to say 6
How can we
chiefs of
forget
staff.
Governor Symington? Right?
Or 7. So, you know, it's hard when you first get elected and you get up there, you know, to sort of everybody have their footing. And that's what we went through. All
right, we're going to have to end this segment discussion on the governor. But still ahead, we're looking at what the legislature got done with a divided government. We'll be right back with what the lawmakers got right and what they got wrong in 2023. Plus, don't forget, later in the show, we'll have the best and worst in politics in 2023.